Rahim. Okay, so this is going to be a recorded class. So, Moment, welcome to your first IELTS session. I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Mohammad Hamza Nasir, and for the past 2 years, I've been working as an IELTS instructor, PT instructor, and a foreign education consultant. I'm from Lahore, basically, and आपको Mrs. Nakashi ने मेरा number दिया था, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she's someone who I've worked with for quite a while for in regards to IELTS as well as consultancy. So, yep, welcome to the session. Now, your exam is on the 22nd, right? Speaking?
Yes.
Okay, so today and tomorrow we are going to be prioritizing speaking. Okay, मेरी आज पूरी कोशिश होगी कि मैं speaking module की जो basics हैं, the basic fundamental details, the technicals, what to do, what not to do, what are the different parts of the speaking module, how do you present yourself, which things you take care of, which band descriptors you try to ace. I'll try my best to cover that today. I'll try my best to wind it up today, ताकि फिर आने वाली classes में फिर हम बाकी modules को देख सकें और साथ में हर class में मैं आपका एक mock speaking test भी ले सकूं. This way I can also assess how you are developing yourself. Okay.
Okay.
All right, perfect. अब secondly, अब आपके लिए अपना video on करना मुनासिब होगा?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be good because since we're going to be having a speaking discussion, so obviously I need to look at you, I need to know what your facial expressions are, what your body language is, because that plays a big part in your speaking interview. Okay.
Okay.
Let's begin. आप अपना केस जो है मैम नकाशी से प्रोसेस करें या वैसे आपने रीच आउट किया था IELTS के लिए? अच्छा,
जी
वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन ग्रुप, राइट?
नहीं, असल में मैं कनाडा का मैं कर रहा हूँ.
अच्छा, कनाडा का है, ठीक है. आपकी रेजिडेंस कहाँ से है?
मैं केपी के मालाकंड से हूँ.
अच्छा, चलें, ठीक है, सही है. संगा चल दे. हाँ जी. मैं खुद अपना 4 साल मैं खुद GIK में मैंने पढ़ा था, गुलाम ज़ाफर यूनिवर्सिटी. तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अल्लाह के फजल से डिड माय बैचलर्स इन केमिकल इंजीनियरिंग फ्रॉम देयर. चलें फिर मोमेंट साहब, ऑन दैट नोट बिस्मिल्लाह करते हैं. लेट्स बिगिन. इंट्रोडक्शन टू IELTS स्पीकिंग मॉड्यूल. ठीक है, आज मैं आपको बिल्कुल बेसिक्स की दूंगा इस पूरे मॉड्यूल की, व्हाट यू गोना बी लुकिंग एट. ठीक है. So, as you would know, Moment, you have two types of IELTS tests. Okay, you have IELTS General as well as IELTS Academic. In both IELTS General and Academic, you are tested in 4 modules: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Now, your speaking module is the same, identical 100%, regardless of whether you're going for IELTS General or whether you're going for IELTS Academic. So this is the first thing we need to understand. IELTS speaking module is the same under IELTS academic test as well as IELTS general test. Okay. Next up, हमने अब ये देखना है कि what things we need to take care of. What are some tips that we need to be aware of, that we need to embrace when we are giving this speaking exam. ठीक है. इससे पहले कि मैं आपको बताऊं structure क्या है इस exam का, first we look at some speaking tips. Number 1, you have to be formal. Right? It's not a session you're having with your buds, right? It's an interview, so you have to be professional and you have to make sure that you keep the formality of the setting in your mind. Number 2, give a full answer. Okay, give a full answer. For example, someone asks me, "Where do you live?" And I just say Lahore. It's not a full answer. I live in Lahore, which is based in Pakistan. What have you studied? I just say masters. ये full answer नहीं है आपका. I've done my master's in advanced chemical engineering from University of Strathclyde in UK. I did my postgraduate studies in the domain of chemical engineering from Strathclyde. तो आपने एक full answer देना है, ठीक है जी? Number 3, be polite. Okay, obviously you have to be well mannered, be cultured. Okay, maintain a good posture. When you are in that speaking interview, when you are in that room with the examiner, ठीक है, आपकी जो body language है अक्सर वो बहुत कुछ बताती है आपके बारे में. बहुत सारे examiners हैं, including myself, हमें candidate को पहले 30-45 seconds में judge कर लेते हैं. We get a basic idea of him. If you're attentive, if you're dressed well, if you're sitting with your arms folded, chest straight, head looking forwards, a slight smile on your face, take it. It shows that, you are ready for this. It shows that you are confident, you're in control. अगर आप बैठे हुए हैं, nails bite करें अपने, पीछे गिर रहे हैं, टांगे ऊपर है, वो सब कुछ. It just shows that, you're not fully serious and you basically don't know what you signed up for. So maintain a good posture. Speak clearly. You should be audible. ठीक है, अपने वर्ड्स को ईट नहीं करना, चोक नहीं करना, स्टैमर नहीं करना. ओके, मेक श्योर कि जो भी आप बोल रहे हैं जो है वो उनको सुनाई दे. इट्स बेटर to speak 3 lines that are clear as opposed to 10 lines that are totally inaudible. Okay. Next up,
Okay.
use descriptive words. What do I mean by descriptive words? Okay, for example, let's say the examiner asks you, "What's your favorite dish?" मिसाल के तौर पे आप अर्ज करते हैं कि my favorite dish is biryani. Okay, now let's say the examiner is a foreigner. Okay, he doesn't know what biryani is. Tell him what's biryani. I mean, biryani is a cultural Pakistani dish. It's a very famous cuisine in Pakistan. It involves rice along with a lot of spices and chicken and curd, etc., etc. ठीक है? तो descriptive words को यूज करने उनको प्रॉपर्ली एक्सप्लेन भी करना है. अनदर वर्ड्स नीचे मैं लिखता हूँ एक्सप्लेन फॉरेन वर्ड्स. ये भी सिमिलर एक सेटिंग में आप इसको ले सकते हैं. उसके बाद स्पीक अप. यू मस्ट बी ऑडिबल बट डोंट बी टू लाउड और टू सॉफ्ट फॉर दैट मैटर. मेंटेन अ स्टडी पेस. डोंट स्पीक टू फास्ट और टू स्लो. मतलब आप कहते हैं पहले माय नेम इज मोमेंट. I continue to reside in Malakand and KPK and I want to go to Canada. So what has happened is the first part mein you were too slow and second part mein you were too fast. Okay? So you have to make sure you maintain a steady pace. My name is Momin. I reside in KPK in Malakand and I plan on going to Canada for my postgraduate studies है जो भी आप पढ़ने जा रहे हैं. ठीक है? उसके बाद बहुत आहिस्ता भी नहीं बोलना कि सुनाई देते, बहुत चीखना भी नहीं है कि क्योंकि कान को कोई परमानेंट डैमेज हो जाए. राइट? सो यू मस्ट मेक श्योर के वॉल्यूम और पिच और पेस जो वो आपकी कांस्टेंट रहे थ्रू आउट योर इंटरव्यू. उसके बाद डोंट यूज स्लैंग वोकैबुलरी. ठीक है ना? कोई लूज टॉक नहीं, कोई फहाशियत की गुफ्तगू नहीं, कोई गाली गलोच नहीं. लाइक आई सेड, यू हैव टू बी फॉर्मल, यू हैव टू बी पोलाइट, यू हैव टू बी कल्चर्ड. एंड लास्टली, डोंट मेमोराइज आंसर्स. Don't memorize answers. This is very important moment. This is one of the big reasons why Pakistani students get very poor scores in the speaking module, because unse jab bhi aap koi question पूछें तो clearly from a distance nazar aa raha hota ki unhone ek ratta mara hua hai. They just wrote it on the script, they just crammed it in at the last moment. There's no spontaneity, there's no ambition behind what they're saying, there's no feeling, there's no compassion behind what they're saying. They are just एक script है, उसको बस वो फेंक रहे examiner की तरफ. And उन्हें और ना बस वाज़ेह हो रहा है कि जो candidate है, he doesn't even want to be in this room. He just wants to get this done and dusted with. If the interview does not mean anything to you, it's not going to mean anything to the examiner either. Okay? अपना पैशन दिखाना होगा. ठीक है ना? ये नहीं कि बस इंटरव्यू में कह ये लो मैं आ गया, 8 बैंड्स कर दो, मुझे देना दो, नहीं देना तो भाड़ में जाओ. So you have to make sure कि you present yourself properly. ठीक है? कोई आप पूछता है कि जी why you want to study in Canada? Because it's a pioneer of education and the degree program is good and I get permanent residency. What does this show? कि बस लास्ट मिनट में रट्टा किया हुआ मैंने चीज को और मैं बस जल्दी से बोल रहा हूँ इससे पहले कि मैं चीज जो है मेरे ज़हन से निकल जाए. ठीक है जी? So you got to make sure that you present yourself. Someone asks you, why do you want to study in Canada? Well, I want to study in Canada because it is a pioneer of high quality education. My whole life, I believed in the fact that academia should always be prioritized over the professional field, because when you have a better degree, when you have a stronger specialization, when you have a higher educational qualification, it opens a lot of doors for you. And I feel like looking at the research infrastructure in Canada, it's one of the best opportunities for me as far as higher educational destinations are concerned. अब इस तरह बात करेंगे तो लगेगा भी कि कि इन्होंने थोड़ी रिसर्च की है, थोड़ा सा ये रेडी है, इनका दिल करे वहां जाने के लिए. ठीक है? So you have to be spontaneous. This is a very important speaking tip which a lot of students don't factor into consideration. ठीक है? ये आपकी स्पीकिंग टिप्स हो गई. इन चीजों का आपने ख्याल रखना है जब आप अपने स्पीकिंग इंटरव्यू दे रहे हो. ठीक है?
Okay.
उसके बाद आते हैं आपके bad descriptors of IELTS speaking module. अब देखिए, let's say Momin, you are a CEO of a corporate organization. Yes? Let's say you are the CEO of a corporate organization, and there are some resources who are working under you. चाहे वो managerial setting हो, चाहे वो technical setting हो. ठीक है? लेट्स से 6-7 महीने बाद आपने डिसाइड करना है मैंने किसको प्रमोशन देनी है, किसको प्रमोशन नहीं देनी, किसको फारिग करना है. राइट? तो कुछ पैरामीटर्स होंगे ना जिसको आप मद्देनजर रखेंगे. नंबर 1, क्या बंदा टाइम पे आ रहा है? व्हाट्स द पॉइंट ऑफ अ रिसोर्स इफ ही कांट कम ऑन टाइम? नंबर 1. नंबर 2, डज ही हैव प्रोफेशनलिज्म? क्या वो मेरे जो सबऑर्डिनेट्स हैं उनके साथ तमीज से पेश आ रहे हैं? क्या मेरे कस्टमर्स को रिस्पेक्ट दे रहा है जो देनी चाहिए? राइट? उसके साथ साथ क्या उनके अंदर वो वो विजन है लॉन्ग टर्म डेवलपमेंट के लिए? ठीक है? उसके बाद उनकी जो टेक्निकल नॉलेज है वो कैसी है, उनकी मैनेजरियल नॉलेज कैसी है, कैन ही प्रेजेंट, कैन ही स्पीक, कैन ही गेट आउट ऑफ हिज कंफर्ट जोन, कैन ही डील विद द क्राइसिस? तो डिफरेंट पैरामीटर्स को मद्देनजर रखते हुए आप डिसाइड करते हैं किसको प्रमोट करना है, किसको प्रमोट नहीं करना. राइट? सिमिलरली व्हेन यू गिव अ स्पीकिंग एग्जाम, कुछ criteria होते हैं जिनको examiners आप देखते हैं when he decides whether to give you a 9 band score or 8 or 7 or 6 or whatever. Okay, so band descriptors are the parameters upon the basis of which the IELTS speaking module is evaluated. Okay, each band descriptor is assigned an equal weightage of 25% when it comes to evaluating the speaking band score. The following are the band descriptors for IELTS speaking module. Number 1, fluency. All right, कितना fluent आलिया बात करें, ठीक है, कितनी, like I said, कितनी spontaneously बात करें. Number 2, vocabulary. You know, are you using the same word over and over and over again? You know, okay, you say my last job was this, I learned this from my job. Job के बजाय कोई और चीज यूज कर लें, occupation कह लें, field कह लें, designation कह लें, avenue कह लें, ठीक है ना, corporate position कह लें. You similarly, you have this word, you know, the Taj Mahal was built by this person, Shah Jahan, for example, जो भी थे, right? So build अगर बार बार use करेंगे, examiners will draw this inference that this person has a very limited grip over his vocabulary. All right, he has a very limited grip over his vocabulary. So you can use, instead of build, you can say the building was set up by, established by, made by, constructed by, this person was the architect of that building. So अपनी vocabulary में variations लाएं. इसके लिए you need to read books, you need to read newspapers, you need to read magazines, you need to, more importantly, you need to converse in English, you know. उसके साथ फिर आपकी होती है grammar, right? Grammar. Now, grammar basically means the ability, among one of its many meanings can be the ability to construct compound sentences. अब compound sentences से क्या मुराद है? You know, अब आप कहते हैं कि जी, my name is Momin, एक sentence. I am from KPK. I like business studies. I want to do MBA. What you've done is you could be 4 short sentences, which is unsatisfactory for a guy of your capabilities, especially at this stage of your educational trajectory, जहाँ आप बाहर एक foreign country में masters करने जा रहे हैं, especially one like Canada, right? आप Canada जा रहे हैं ना?
Yes.
ठीक है, सही है. तो उसके बजाय अब आप थोड़ा सा इससे कॉम्प्लेक्स करते हैं. कॉम्प्लेक्स basically means is that you merge or you amalgamate or you combine 2 or more simple sentences, you know. My name is Momin and I'm a resident of KPK who is currently planning on going to Canada for pursuing higher educational or postgraduate qualifications. ठीक है, अब आपने जो है 3 चीजों को लिंक कर दिया. ठीक है, या मैं अपनी फॉर एग्जांपल इंट्रोडक्शन दूं, मैं कहूं my name is Hamza Nasir, I'm from Lahore, I've done an IELTS, I'm an IELTS instructor and a foreign education consultant, right? I recently did my master's from UK. My name is Mohammad Hamza Nasir, who recently came back to Lahore after pursuing postgraduate studies in UK in the position of chemical engineering, and I'm currently working as an IELTS instructor and foreign education consultant in the city. समझ रहे हैं? अब मैंने क्या किया, मैंने simple sentences को join कर दिया. Now it's much more appealing. It's much more, there's a sufficient degree of complexity that makes it more appealing, and now it looks as much more professional to the examiner or to the interviewer who is interviewing you. Okay, so इस चीज का भी ख्याल रखते हैं. अभी तक कोई भी क्वेश्चन हो, प्लीज मुझे रोकें. क्वेश्चंस पूछेंगे, आपकी लर्निंग होगी. क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछेंगे, लर्निंग नहीं होगी.
सही है.
ठीक है. नंबर 4 is pronunciation. Pronunciation का ख्याल रखना है, ठीक है ना. This is something I often get a lot, you know. उसमें कि मैं आपको एग्जांपल दूंगा, right? किससे आप बात करते हैं, you know, what do you do in your spare time? I go for a walk in the park. You know, I mean, in Punjab, you know, I mean, especially when I'm taking interviews with students, I often get this word a lot, you know. So it's park, you know, not park, right? Not park, right? And secondly, right, for example, एक student से पूछा जाता है कि which city do you reside from, you know. For example, let's say वो India से, you know, तो कहती है नई दिल्ली. So नई दिल्ली is not international pronunciation, it's New Delhi. So you have to be exact. Similarly, it's not Lahore, it's Lahore. I'm just giving you some examples. You know, you have to be aware of the international standard pronunciation. That is very important for you to understand. Okay? So basically, people often ask me that, Mr. Nasir, what constitutes a good speaking interview? And I always say to them that a good speaking interview is one in which A, you're fluent, B, you have a strong range of vocabulary, C, your grammar and complexity of sentence structure is up to the mark, and 4, your pronunciations are based on the international standards. In 4 band descriptors, that is fluency, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, aap agar inko ace karenge, to inshallah ta'ala, there's a very strong hope and probability that you will get a decent speaking score, God willing, right? So this is something that you need to be aware of. Next up. So far, so good. Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. अब आते हैं structured के ऊपर, right? What is the structure of your speaking module? Now, you have 4 different parts of the speaking module, okay? Number 1 is part 0, that is greeting the examiner plus identification check. Yes. Number 2 is part 1, that is a build-up in which the examiner explores general themes. In सब के ऊपर मैं डिटेल में भी आगे जाऊंगा, एक-एक part को मैं डिटेल में टच करूंगा. अभी I'm just giving you an overview moment. So part 0 is greeting the examiner plus an identification check. Part 1 is a build-up in which the examiner explores general themes. Okay. Part 2 is the holy grail of the IELTS speaking module. You speak regarding an issue that is presented to you on a cue card, right? Cue card kya hota hai, isme kya hota hai? You look at it afterwards. Part 3 is a follow-up to part 2. Now, any questions so far?
नहीं सही है बस.
Okay, well, I was expecting you to ask me a question. You know what question I was expecting you to ask me, Mohammad? I was expecting you to ask me this question. Okay, Mr. Nasir, why did you say part 0? You're saying 0, 1, 2, 3. Even to guess it, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, why did I say the first part is part 0? Because the first part is an icebreaker. What do you mean by icebreaker? It's something in which the exactly you just set the tone of the interview. Part 0 is not officially marked. Part 0 is not officially marked, but in many ways it sets the tone for the rest of your interview. I mean, you know that old saying in life, first impression is the last impression, right? So yes. I personally don't believe in it. अगर मैं आपको अपना ज़ाती नज़रिया पेश करूँ इस मौजू के ऊपर, मैं इस चीज़ को नहीं believe करता, लेकिन ये लोग अक्सर करते हैं इस चीज़ को. And obviously when Rome do as the Romans do, so it's very important for you to set a good tone, So part 0 is reading the examiner plus identification check. So isme you're not being officially marked, but how you establish yourself here will go along when deciding how you're going to be scored in the upcoming modules, okay? अब चलें देखते हैं बाकी 3 parts हैं, part 1, part 2, part 3 they are being marked. उसमें you're going to be graded. अब आगे चलते हैं. What are the contents of part 0? Okay. Let's look at that. Part 0, man, which is your icebreaker in which you are not being officially evaluated. You're going to have some questions, okay? Question 1, examiner introduces himself or herself, right? So let's say I am the examiner and I'm taking your interview. So I'll start by saying, this will be the first question that I'll ask you. Good afternoon, my name is Hamza Nasir. What's your full name? Or could you tell me your full name? ठीक है जी? फिर उसके बाद question 2, examiner asks for your name. What can I call you? ठीक है? For example, अब Mohammad Hamza Nasir, अब let's say मैं कहता हूँ अपना name, अब he will be wondering कि पूरा interview मैंने किस तरह इनसे खिताब करूँ. Mohammad Hamza Nasir बोलूँ, Mohammad कहूँ, Hamza कहूँ, Nasir कहूँ, Sir कहूँ, Mr. Nasir कहूँ, Hamza Sahib कहूँ. So this is where you tell them how they can call you for the rest of the interview. Question number 3, examiner inquires about your whereabouts. Where are you from? Or could you tell me where you come from? Right? Question number 4, examiner asks to see your identification. Could I see your identification, please? Can you show me your identification, please? Okay. So these are some questions that can be asked from you in part 0. अब आइए देखते हैं इन सब के एक-एक के जवाब कैसे होते हैं. So सबसे पहला question आप अगर देखें part 0 में क्या होता है, what's your name? What's your full name? All right. Full name में अब इसमें आंसर में आप क्या कहते हैं? For example, you can say good afternoon Hamza, or you can say good afternoon Mr. Nasir. You see, here's the thing, Moment. These guys, especially foreigners, they don't like being called sir. Okay. So for example, if my name is Hamza Nasir, you can either call me by my first name or you can call me by my surname while attaching a title to my surname. So it's either Hamza or it's Mr. Nasir. I'm assuming your name is Momin Khan, for example. Yeah. So your first name would be, so either, it could be Momin or it could be Mr. Khan. Okay. Similarly, if it's Sara Anjum, it could be either Sara or it could be Mrs. or Miss Anjum, depending on whether or not she's married. So, okay. So you can say, good afternoon, Mr. Nasir. My name's Momin Khan. Okay. Now look at this. My name's. I did not say my name is. I said my name's. Is super. Okay. Okay. Now, while you say this, speak clearly and smile. Okay. Make sure you maintain eye contact. So you look at the fella in the eyes, speak clearly, and you smile. Okay. Maintain a good facial expression. It's very conducive towards getting a good IELTS score in speaking. Don't speak quickly, okay? It's not a rap battle, bro. Don't speak quickly. Uske baad, like I said, my names, this is recommended. My name is not recommended. Because ऊपर मैं बात कर रहे थे ना हम कि pronunciation is one of the 4 banned descriptors and all that, you know. So when you say my names instead of my name is, you say that is basically, that counts as high level pronunciation, HLP. That counts as high level pronunciation, which is generally regarded as a more sophisticated way of speaking. Okay.
Okay.
उसके बाद फिर एग्जामिनर साहब आपसे सेकंड क्वेश्चन ही पूछते हैं पार्ट 0 में कि व्हाट कैन आई कॉल यू. Okay. So for example, let's say if you have a nickname, okay, and you are comfortable with the examiner calling you by a nickname, you can, for example, in my case, it's this, right? You can say, you can call me Hammy, just call me Hammy, please call me Hammy, refer to me as Hammy. Similarly, if you don't have a nickname, or if you have a nickname but you're not comfortable, in being addressed by a nickname, you can just simply say, address me as Momin, address me as Mr. Khan, whatever. Okay, fatwa nahi dena wahan ke ji ye nickname haram hai, ye wo sab kuch hai, right? Just keep it simple, ke bas is tarah aap mujhe mukhatab kar le, and we're good to go. So yeah, don't explain or add more information. Uske baad, pro tips for answer to question 3 of part 0 of the IELTS speaking module. Now, what was question 3? Examiner asks you, where are you from? So I can say I'm from Lahore, or I can say I'm from Pakistan, or I can say a more, like I said, a more complex sentence would be an amalgamation of 2 simple sentences. I'm a resident of Lahore, which lies in the Pakistani province of Punjab. I'm a resident of Lahore, which lies in the Pakistani province of Punjab. Don't expand further. Some people, they get very creative. They say, I'm from Lahore, which is in Pakistan, which is in Asia, which is, in planet Earth, which is in Milky Way, which is on God's green universe, so, but don't need to get carried away like that. Okay, just say your city and country, that's good enough. I mean, city is fine because obviously if you're giving a physical interview, you guys are going to be in Pakistan anyways, right? So don't expand further. Don't ask the examiner questions, like, what about you? Where are you from, Mr. Examiner? Tell me about yourself. Because at the end of the day, just remember one thing. It's your interview. It's not his interview. Secondly, you guys are not having a chat over a cup of coffee. It's a professional setting. So keep that in mind. Do not ask the examiner questions. Use English pronunciation. It's Lahore. It's not Lahore. It's New Delhi. It's not New Delhi. So bas pronunciations ka khayal rakhna. Uske baad, finally, the final question of part 0 of the IELTS speaking module is going to be, can I show your identification? Can you show me? The examiner is going to ask you, Mohammad, can you show me your identification, please? Can you show me your identification, please? You can say, sure, here you are, of course, here it is, there you go, and you give him your or her your identification, right? Identification bole, ID bole ki baat hai, keep the answer short. It is also possible to say nothing and just give your ID, but it's good, it shows soft skills. If you show, a slight smile and say, yeah, sure, there you go. Now, it depends on what the ID is. So, for example, if you registered and paid for this exam, if you're registered with your CNIC, aapne apna shanakti card dena hai, agar aapne passport ke saath registration ki, so you have to give them your passport. Okay. Now, while he is looking at your identification, that he's looking at you, be serious, and the moment he gives you identification back, that is when your part 0 is complete. Okay? जब आपको अपनी ID वापस मिल जाती है, that marks the end of part 0, and that means now we are now moving to part 1, which is from where you're being officially graded, from where your evaluation officially begins. Okay? Now, so far, any questions?
No, all's good.
All's good? Okay. Next up, common questions pertaining to part 1 of the IELTS speaking module. Now, इसमें Momin साहब आपको general questions आपसे पूछे जाएंगे, ठीक है जी? You'll be asked some general questions that are about you, just so that the examiner can get to know you or get to understand you better. मिसाल के तौर पे examiner साहब अर्ज कर सकते हैं, what is your favorite dish? What's your favorite sport? What's your favorite TV program? Which leisure activity do you go for? Which book are you reading nowadays? Which is the best time weather for you? What's the best time of the day for you? Which animal do you like the most? Favorite flower, drink, song, teacher, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so just giving you some examples. So you're being asked some general questions which are about you. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Are you more of a city person or a countryside person? Okay, stuff like that. Okay, then note, focus on your grammar, that is your verbiage, pronunciation, and last but not the least, your sentence structure. Also remember that questions can explore multiple dimensions of the same aspects in a multitude of different manners. इसके ऊपर आने से पहले हम थोड़ा सा इनको discuss कर लेते हैं, ठीक है? Just to give you an idea, I'm going to ask you, Mohammad. Okay, let me ask you, right? What is your favorite dish? Tell me.
Well, my favorite dish is fast food, and it's really match my taste buds, and it's available everywhere, and it's quite affordable.
Good. But try to, mention a specific fast food. So, for example, if they ask me, what is your favorite dish? I can say, well, my favorite dish is lasagna, especially beef lasagna. I've always had an affinity for it. When I was very young, I watched this movie called Garfield and the Tale of Two Kittens, and the cat was a big lover of lasagna, and I've been hooked on to that dish ever since. Okay. What's your favorite sport? Well, growing up, my favorite sport has always been cricket. As a child, my childhood idols were Michael Clark and Kevin Peterson, and I've always watched their innings highlights a lot. And I've always followed the World Cups as well as the Ashes, and therefore I love playing as well as watching this game. What's your favorite TV program? My favorite TV program is House of Cards because it stars one of my favorite actors in it, that is Kevin Spacey, and it shows the brutal power dynamics and political struggles in the United States in a very gripping and compelling manner. What's your favorite leisure activity? What's your favorite book? My favorite book is The Kite Runner, in which Khalid Hosseini paints a very vivid picture of the Afghanistan before and after the Russian invasion, and how two family members were impacted by a drastic decision that happened one day out in the kite arena, right? So what's your favorite weather? My favorite weather is spring. Temperatures neither very cold nor very warm. It's just a perfect time, when the flowers are blooming and the colors are coming back to life. What's your favorite time of the day? My favorite time of the day is the evening. That's when you come back from work, you're done for the rest of the day. The sun's setting and you just sit in your garden, have a cup of tea, read a book. You get to relax, you get to detox a bit, you get to give yourself some desperately needed personal time. समझ रहे हैं? इस तरह थोड़ा सा explain कर लेना. What's your favorite animal? Okay. My favorite animal is cat. They're they are adorable fuzzballs. They're very furry creatures. They're massive stress relievers, and playing with them is always a sight to behold. What's your favorite flower? Well, my favorite flower is the sunflower because it faces the sun. That in itself is a very motivating lesson for me, that the shepherd must always face the sun, so that all his shadows lie behind him. We must always be a proponent of light rather than having an affinity for darkness. Right? What's your favorite drink? What's your favorite song? What's your favorite teacher? So this is basically how you talk about it. Okay. So bottom line is, don't give one-word answers. जो भी आपकी choice है, जो भी question आपसे पूछे, थोड़ा सा उसको explain करें और थोड़ा सा उसको एक personal touch दें. Make it relatable with your life. Okay. Basically, your passion should come out. Okay. Like I said before, Moment, if it does not mean anything to you, it's not going to mean anything to the examiner either. Okay. I've seen interviews. I've seen interviews that have finished in 5 minutes, and then I've seen interviews that have gone on for 20 minutes, even half an hour. Okay. So why is it that one person is coming out of that room in 5 minutes and the other person is coming out of the room after half an hour? The difference comes down to their personal intensity and charisma. Okay. If you have that drive, right? If you got that flair, if you got the spark, if you got that battle symphony, the examiner is going to enjoy the session with you, and he's going to prolong it. And the more he prolongs it, the more your chances of getting a good score are. Okay. I had an overall score of 8.5 in speaking, and my interview went for over 20 minutes. Which pehle jo saab the wo 5-7 minute mein farig ho gaye the, right? So point being, the fact is they have no personal vendetta against you, but the ball is in your court. Okay, this is ground level movement. How far you go from up here, that's entirely up to you, mate. Okay, so any questions so far?
Part 1 में मतलब एक क्वेश्चन की लेंथ कितनी होनी चाहिए आंसर की?
It depends. Again, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, however long it. I would try not to be too long, but at least give 2 to 3 sentences, I would say. And like I said, make it relatable to your personal self. Okay. And the examiner is going to interrupt you numerous times, because obviously examiner ने भी कोई दिन में 100-150 interviews लेने होते हैं. तो आप ही के साथ अगर बैठ जाएंगे तो फिर आप ही का इंटरव्यू मिलेंगे पूरा दिन. लेकिन वही बात होती है कि it's always good to let the examiner stop you rather than you end up being out of ideas. It's always good. I'm going to repeat. It's always good to let the examiner stop you rather than you running out of ideas yourself. Is that understood?
Okay.
Okay. Next up. अब एक चीज का ख्याल रखें, आपका जो पार्ट 1 में जो क्वेश्चन होंगे ना, एक थीम के ऊपर वो बात कर सकते हैं, लेकिन उसको बड़े मुख्तलिफ अंदाज के साथ पेश कर सकते हैं. इन अदर वर्ड्स, स्पीकिंग इन इंग्लिश, they can give you one topic, but they can address it from different angles, from different dimensions, and they can phrase it in a variety of different manners. Okay? आपको एक मिसाल में दे रहा हूँ. Let's say cooking के ऊपर बात हो रही है, right? Let's say cooking के ऊपर बात हो रही है. They can ask you this question so many different ways, Moment. Just look at it. How often do you cook? Who usually does the cooking in your home? Where did you learn to cook? How long have you been cooking? What kinds of dishes do you cook? Can you cook? Like, do you like cooking? What's your favorite dish? Do you prefer eating at home or eating out? Do you usually cook for yourself? What do you usually cook? Do you ever order food via an online app? Have you ever had foreign food? Did you ever cook when you were a child? Why do some people dislike cooking? Yes? So, मुख्तलिफ तरीक़ाकार से एक ही मौजू को वो extrapolate कर सकते हैं. So, this is something that you need to factor into consideration. Okay? And you need to be prepared for that as well. So far, so good.
Yes.
Okay. IELTS speaking part 2, you know, how to start. अब देखिए, अब before we look at it, मैं आपको थोड़ा सा वैसे एक general overview देता हूँ. अब इसमें क्या होता है, एग्जामिनर साहब आपसे एक क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं, लेकिन वो सिर्फ एक सिंपल क्वेश्चन ही होता है, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल व्हाट्स योर फेवरेट डिश. उसके ऊपर थोड़ा वो डिटेल में जाके, अब व्हाट हैपेंस इस मोमेंट यू विल गेट अ क्यू कार्ड, राइट? यू विल गेट अ क्यू कार्ड. उस क्यू कार्ड के ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन होगा, और इस क्वेश्चन के नीचे 2 या 3 बुलेट पॉइंट्स के बनोगे. ठीक है? उस क्वेश्चन के नीचे 2 या 3 बुलेट पॉइंट्स के बनोगे. दिस क्वेश्चन विल बी एड्रेस्ड टू यू पर्सनली. आपने अपने नजरिए से उस क्वेश्चन का जवाब देना, राइट? मिसाल के तौर पे, यू हैव अ क्वेश्चन, describe a book that you recently read. Okay, so you have three bullet points. What's the name of the book and who's the author? In other words, what's the title of the book and who's the author? Okay, who are the characters in the book and what happens in the end? Number 3, what lesson, what didactic lesson, what inspirational lesson do you get out of the book? Right? मतलब आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछे और उन 3 बुलेट पॉइंट्स को आपने इंक्लूड करना है अपने आंसर में. ठीक है? आपको 1 मिनट का टाइम गिवन होगा for brainstorming, for preparing yourself for the answer, and during that 1 minute moment, you can make short notes on that paper. Okay, short notes मतलब जो चीजें आपने बोलनी है जब आपको बोलेंगे कि अपना बोलना शुरू करें, right? And you can look at that paper, you can look at those bullet points while you're speaking. So it's always recommended to make notes. I know a lot of fellas, they become overconfident. Nah, man, I don't need to make notes, you know. And then when the interview begins, you know, they're just clueless, you know, they're just blank. You know, so don't do that. कोई फैसिलिटी मिल रही है, use it to your advantage, better safe than sorry. Okay, मिसाल के तो, so ये आपको समझ आ गई ना, describe a book you read. So but the question is, what is different from this part and part 1? So like I said before, part 1 में एक simple question आपसे पूछेंगे, जबकि part 2 में आपको क्यू कार्ड पे वो question पूछेंगे, वो भी आप भी के नजरिए से मुतालिक होगा. They describe a book that you recently read, लेकिन उसमें 3-4 bullet points given होंगे जिनके ऊपर आपको expand करना होगा, और आपको 1 minute का prep time given होगा in which you can make notes. Is that understood? Okay, so next up, आगे चलते हैं. Describe book that you recently read. Okay, so the different ways to start your answer. There are no right ways or wrong ways. Following are 2 possible ways in which you may begin. I would like to talk about that's more formal. I'm gonna tell you about that is less formal, but both are fine. So you see, if your question says, "Moment, describe a book that you recently read," and you start your interview, I mean, you start part 2 of your interview by saying that, "Yo, Mr. Examiner, I'm gonna tell you about a book that I recently read. I'm gonna describe a book that I recently read." ये आपने क्या किया? आपने question statement को as it is paraphrase कर दिया, right? Instead of describing, you can say, "I'm gonna give you detailed exposition or illumination about." Instead of book, you can say novel. I recently read that I came across a short while ago. Well, today, Mr. Examiner, I'm gonna give you detailed illumination or exposition about a novel that I came across not too long ago, right? So what you've done is, without changing the meaning behind it, you have just paraphrased your examiner Saabko, you've given this indication that I have a good command over my vocabulary, which is always going to be very beneficial. So in order to get a band score of 6 and above, you can show the examiner that you have a steady grip over your lexical resource. You can use flexible language by using your own words or paraphrasing the question statement. Remember one thing, Moment, any English proficiency test for that matter, be it IELTS, be it PTE, be it, Duolingo, be it GRE, it's all about vocabulary. It's all about synonyms. It's all about paraphrasing. Vocabulary पे grip अच्छी होगी, test ace करने का chance बढ़ेगा. Vocabulary पे grip नहीं होगी, तो मसले होंगे. You know, a lot of students, you know, they actually come to me, you know, exams से 3-4 दिन पहले, you know, कि जी मेरा 4-5 दिन बाद एग्जाम है, ना बेसिक इंग्लिश लिखनी आती है, ना पढ़ना आता है, ना कुछ और आता है, एक्सपेक्ट किया मेरे जेब में कोई जादू की छड़ी पड़ी है जो मैंने घुमा देनी है. इट डज नॉट हैपन दैट वे. You need to do your research, you need to do your preparation. बेशक रिस्क देने वाली अल्लाह की ज़ात है, कामयाबी देने वाली अल्लाह की ज़ात है, लेकिन इंसान को मेहनत जिंदगी में खुद करनी पड़ती है. So you need to make sure कि even if ये नहीं कि जी अब बस 4 दिन बाद पेपर है, छोड़ने पड़े, अब मैं क्या करूँ, 3-4 दिन में भी बड़ा कुछ आप सीख सकते हैं. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 वर्ड सीखें, उनके मीनिंग्स बनाए, उनके सेंटेंसेस बनाए, ठीक है, उनको अंडरस्टैंड करें, कल को उनको यूज भी कर सकते हैं आप इंटरव्यू में. ठीक है. देखिए, दिस a big problem that I find in the consultancy industry, just like any other industries, is short-sightedness. Okay, people think that there's no point of learning high-octane English so that I can end up getting an 8 or an 8.5 or a 9 score. वो कहते हैं, well, you know what, the consultant has said कि जी बस 6.5 चाहिए with no less than 6, तो बस इतना बस मुझे आप सर करा दें कि बस मेरा 6 आ जाए किसी तरह, बाकी बात की बात देखी जाएगी. And I never ever, my focus is never ever to make students get a 6. Never ever. I'm a professional. I set very high standards. My focus is always a 9. I aimed for a 9, ended up getting an 8.5. दिन में आप कहते हैं कि जी मैंने 10 घंटे तैयारी करनी, 10 घंटे तैयारी करेंगे, तब 10 घंटे का एम रखेंगे, तब जाके 7-8 घंटे की तैयारी होगी. A स्टार का एम करेंगे, तब जाके A या B आएगा, right? So just remember, the ideal situation is always very different from the real situation. Okay, but you can make it very close. You can make the two situations very close by putting in your hard work, and obviously there's a bit of luck as well, right? Fortune favors the brave. Always remember that. Yes. So remember one thing, that you need to put in that extra yard. Okay, this IELTS is not just an end goal itself, but I always keep on saying it's a means to an end. Okay, you are going to go abroad, right? So you have to speak in English, no matter how capable you are, right? If you cannot express yourself, if you cannot communicate, you are always going to be at a disadvantage, per se. Okay, so you need to make sure कि ये जो आप इंग्लिश अपनी इंप्रूव करें, सिर्फ आइल्स एग्जाम को पास करने के लिए नहीं, लेकिन फ्यूचर में जहाँ जॉब करेंगे, जहाँ पढ़ेंगे, वहां भी कामयाबी अटेन करने के लिए आप अपनी प्रोफेशनल कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स को अपग्रेड कर रहे हैं साइमल्टेनियसली, ईच एंड एवरी डे, ईच एंड एवरी मिनट, ईच एंड एवरी सेकंड. Okay, so your attitude is very important. Okay, what you how you read is just as important as what you read. Okay, now so instead of saying I'll describe a book I recently read, you can say the following. I'm going to tell you about a novel which I read 2 weeks ago, or a fascinating novel which I read not so long ago. Okay, so this basically sums up part 2. Is that understandable?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Next up we come to part 3. I need to understand one thing, Mohammad. In part 3, you are approached about the same theme that you were approached in part 2. मैं क्या अर्ज कर रहा हूँ, मिसाल के तौर पे आपसे एग्जामिनर साहब ने आपको मुखातिब किया पार्ट 2 में, आपसे पूछा डिस्क्राइब अ बुक दैट यू रिसेंटली रेड. सो व्हाट वाज द थीम, मोमेंट? द थीम वाज बुक रीडिंग. सो पार्ट 3 is going to be about the same theme as well, that is book reading. लेकिन फर्क क्या है? पार्ट 2 में it was about you, moment. Describe book that you recently read. Describe book that you recently read. इस दफा वो बुक रीडिंग के प्रोसेस को जनरली लेके वो बात करेंगे, right? Part 3 में what is the culture of book reading in your society? What sort of books do people generally read in your society? How much percentage of people in your country read books? Okay, how can the process of book reading be promoted in your country, especially in today's world where you have so many distractions like online gadgets and the tools? You get what I'm saying, bro? So it's the same theme. Part 2 में it was about you, but part 3 में it's more general, it's more society based. ठीक है? It's like आप एक analysis कर रहे हैं एक मौजू के ऊपर. So it's an extension of part 2, generally speaking. The theme or topic discussed in part 3 is often the same as the one in part 2, but this time around the question is more general and society based. Okay. Okay. A moment. So going to, since this is a free Zoom meeting, so it has a 40-minute limit. So I'm going to end the meeting right after 10 minutes. 10 minutes, I'm going to share the link with you again, and then we'll continue. In the meantime, what I want to do is I just wanted to think over what we have said so far. And after 10 minutes, let me know if you have any questions. We'll rejoin in 10 minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.